everybody, it's Chris and I'm back to do another pour with you today. So today I'm going to show you how I've been doing some of my Lazy Susans lately. And this is an 18-inch wood round that I purchased, I think at Menards or Home Depot. It has been primed with the Zinsser 123 primer and it was just spray painted. And I did lightly sand it before I spray painted it. So it's all ready to go for us today. And I've been doing kind of a negative space Dutch pour, I guess is what I would call the technique. And I did one the other day that turned out really beautiful. And so I thought I would show you guys how I'm doing it. And we're going to start with a base coat. And this happens to be just a sample that I purchased at Home Depot. I think it was on the little remnants rack, if you will, for 50 cents. So I took that paint, I added my pouring medium to it. I did thin it down a bit with water so that it would flow over the wood pretty well. And then I did also add a little bit of Flow acrylic white to it because I thought it was a little bit dark. And the colors that we're going to use today are burnt umber, raw umber, burnt sienna, and raw sienna. And then I also have my little custom mixed glitter mixture of the Rust-Oleum Imagine Glitter Copper, as well as a little bit of copper metallic paint in there just to give it a little bit of a background. This particular paint kind of has a clear base to it. So if you get kind of like areas where it's heavier, you'll see right through to the bottom of whatever you're painting on. So I find that if I add just a little bit of the copper metallic to it, it kind of helps it to give it a little substance so you don't see all the way through your particular piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by putting down a coat of our base paint and hoping that this is thin enough. We'll find out though. I think it could be a tiny bit thinner, but that's all right. So I'm just going to go ahead and tip this and coat this, and then I'll be back and show you the next step. Okay, so now I've got a nice base coat of paint down on the wood. And the next thing I want to do is just kind of add some squiggle lines of my colored paint across the surface. So I'm going to start with the raw umber, and I'm going to start off the side of the round and kind of just start drizzling across. And what I'm going to do is kind of keep my paint concentrated in the center of the wood. And then next I'm going to use my raw sienna. And then burnt umber. Oops, got a little chunk there. I'll just take my little toothpick and take that right off of there. All right, and then next I'm going to put in burnt sienna. And then finally the copper. You can see, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's already some kind of cell reaction going on. Okay, so now I've got all my paint colors down. I do want to pick this little piece out. I think these are little dry flakes off of my bottles of paint. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do then is to add some paint on either side of my line that I created. And I think I might add just a bit more of the raw umber. That was the darker color that we kind of put down first. So what I have found that works really well for me when I'm doing the Dutch pour method is to take my base paint and then I've thinned it down with a little bit more water. So it's a watery version of what's down on the base. And then I'm just going to go along here and add in some paint on either side of the colors that I put down. And then the next thing that I want to do is use my blow dryer, and I'm going to blow the paint back up onto the color. And you can see that I've got some reactions going. And now the next thing that I want to do is to take my blow dryer and I'm going to blow it out in different directions from the center and work my way out to the end of it. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do is kind of use my straw just to kind of touch those areas up. I try not to overwork it with the blow dryer because you can kind of tend to make the paint muddy. But you can see we have some really cool cells popping up through here. And there's no silicone in the paint. This is just the type of pour that we did by using the paint, blowing it over the color, and then blowing it back out with the hair dryer. That's what creates these really cool effects that we have in the paint. So next I'm just gonna use my straw and kind of blow this out. I particularly like to have kind of a ruffled edge when I do a Dutch pour. So I'm just gonna kind of blow out these edges a little bit and kind of even out the pattern. All right, so I wish you guys could see the metallic that popped up in that glitter paint that I put in here. But let me see if I can pick this up and show you a little bit closer look of how the cells look and the different colors that we have in there. The other really cool thing that you can do by using the straw is to kind of coax some of those colors out that are kind of down below other colors. Like over here in this area, I kind of coaxed out a little bit more of that burnt umber. So it's kind of cool if you can use the straw to kind of get some of those colors to come up in through the paint. I apologize about the reflection. Unfortunately, I realized that my studio is not in the best position when it comes to winter time for natural light. So tried to get you out of the lights, but to make sure that you could still see. Okay, so I may go back in and add just a few little touches of color where I kind of feel like it washed out a tiny bit. And I think that's probably because I put a little bit too much of my paint along the edge. And so I think it kind of washed out some of my color. But it's very easy to go back and touch up some of those areas and to add more color back in if you want more of a certain color. And how I'll do that is, like, for example, I think up here it's a little bit dull looking, so I might put a little bit of burnt sienna right here. And then because I do love the metallic and the copper, I'll put a little bit of that in there as well. And then I'm just gonna take my straw and blow the paint down onto that, like so, and then I'll blow it back out. And you can see that that also exposed some of that darker brown too. And that gives it just a little bit more concentration of color right there. And then you can just use your straw to kind of blend it in, and it just gives it a little bit more color. All right, guys, so this is probably gonna dry for about, it should actually be dry probably by the end of today. And then I'll let it sit for a good week before it gets its coat of resin. And then our little Lazy Susan ensemble on the bottom of it to turn it into a beautiful piece of art for someone's kitchen or table. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.